welcome to the first annual Car of the Week. Now, this week's Car of the Week is of course, the smart car, specifically the Smart ForTwo. Now, we're going to get into the history, the design, everything. This is a lot more than your average video. This will be a deep dive, the design, the people who made it, so you're free to skip around, but, you're going to get the entire full story of the Smart ForTwo and be educated enough to speak about it, decently well and have a lot of knowledge about the car. So, first, what made this car so interesting? Because when you look at it, what is there? If you do some researching on the internet, it really got popularized by a Top Gear episode where they slammed it into a wall at 60 miles an hour. Now, nowadays, why is that really significant, right? But also another big question, why was the car so good? Why was this car design so good that it would be knocked off by a Chinese car company and then used by an American car company to make an EV version? Why was this car so remarkable? What was so interesting about this car? Well, that's what we're here to answer, right? We're going to look at why it's significant, the history, the design, the everything. So we need some parameters here. When did the first smart car came out? Well, the first smart car came out in October 1998. Now, this was not sold in the US, it was only sold in Europe, and it was a pretty simple model. The idea behind it was a small, little, economical car. And nowadays, with EVs and everything, just a reminder, this was not an EV. It had an i3 engine, inline 3. It had an engine, right? It was not an EV. It was just an attempt to make a small, little commuter. Now, it's 1998. Where would something like this really be used, right? Well, very, very big, dense cities, right? The idea was if you lived in a big, dense city, especially in Europe, where the houses it's not so tall as it is very compact, and you need something smaller that can fit into those tiny UK parking spots along the Peugeots and Vauxhall Astras that are parked there, right? Another idea was rural use, right? You have a car, you have the Honda, it's in the garage, you don't want to take the Pilot out, you just need to go to church, so you take, of course, the Smart ForTwo rather than your regular car. That's how these were priced, right? Even in my specific town of Salem, Oregon, I remember when I would spend, evenings with my grandparents and they would go to church or go to the local community center. They would take out their golf cart. They just had a golf cart, it wasn't that far away. I'd sit in the little back seat. We weren't golfing and we just drove it on the bike lanes. Nowadays, that's not really something you can get away with, but back then in 2010, that was completely fine and completely normal. And many people did that because you don't want to waste gas. You don't want to take the car out. It was kind of like where EVs are today. Just plug it in. A lot of our grandparents, one just happened to be electric. Plug it in, unplug it, go to church, whatever, go back home. But the thing that really made this different from other modes of transport was that it was competent in crash safety test scores. Now, a little bit of a shock warning here. This is going to be loud, but this is by DPC Cars. Thank you for this video. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Now, this is a crash test that the Euro NCAP did of a normal golf cart. Right there, you can see the occupant compartment has splintered in a million pieces. The person slammed immediately through the windshield, and it's not looking too pretty now, is it? And this is actually a pretty decent model. I'm sure my grandparents, 2010 sat out in the sun for a while, wouldn't perform as well as this brand new model did. Now, the difference about this and the Smart ForTwo was that the Smart ForTwo was good. This is the IHS, or Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's test of the 2008 Smart ForTwo. This was the first year that the Smart ForTwo was sold in the United States, and look at the crash test. Now, golf carts were less expensive. They were around $5,000. This was around 14 at the dealerships. They sold them for 13, but with tax and everything, they were around $14,000. And you may notice it held up really well. Now, there's a big debate, not really a debate, but an acknowledgement in the car crash test community, which I am not a part of, which is talking about big cars versus small cars. Now, big cars versus small cars as an argument is really interesting because the idea is bigger cars should be safer, right? They have more weight behind them and they have more mass behind them, which is true. If you're in an accident and you're in a bigger, heavy, stronger car, your car is going to input its force on the smaller car, and the smaller car is likely going to bound back or bounce back, causing even more force on the body of the occupant and, really stressing out that car to perform better. But there's also truth in that these big Ford Explorers and everything, the way that you want to be slowed down in an accident is controlled and slowly. You want it to be as slow as possible. when you see people die in an accident, which is very unfortunate, it's not because their head hit the dashboard, which it could. It's not because, their head hit the windowsill. It's because their internal organs, unfortunately, slammed up against the insides. It's very graphic. You understand what I'm saying here. It's about the forces, right? So if you can do that as slow and as controlled as possible, that's really what's important in a crash. And smaller cars are better at doing that. The airbags are closer, you have less room to wiggle and hit other people and knock your head on the dashboard. There's less room for you to go in an accident, which is why a lot of people are acknowledging small cars. And the thing that really started it was the smart car. We can see here the airbag helped, pretty controlled. I'm sure that guy would have survived just fine. Now, the forces are still an issue, still a smaller car, still wouldn't want to be in an accident with an F3 or F250, but I think it can handle the average car, and it's certainly safer than Mr. Million Pieces over here, right? It was a competent, very competent, extremely competent solution to your car, right? Just something cheap that you can drive. And another interesting thing about it was the style. Now, when you look at the style, you may notice this. Wrong picture. You may notice this. Very wacky style. That's another thing that made it timeless. We'll talk about that more later. This silver thing. Now, nowadays, you're probably sighing and you're probably thinking that this is probably just some sort of plastic cover. But then you'll notice that it's all in one piece and that they would have to manufacture these pieces all in one thing. And when you look up the construction of the smart car, you'll note that all the body panels are plastic, and the color is already infused. So you can just buy a pre-made blue fender and then snap it on to yourself. So if the idea was to have easily interchangeable parts, why would there be this big silver thing? Well, the big silver thing wasn't, for style or aesthetic purposes or to make it look neat, which it did. It was actually called the tritium cell. Now, the tritium cell was the occupant compartment in most cars. Your car, whether you drive a Honda Civic, Honda Odyssey, I'm saying a lot of Hondas here, Mazda 3, whatever car you drive, Nissan Altima, they have sort of a frame or a designated occupant compartment where you should be able to survive in an accident, right? Like a survival space. This issue with small cars is people don't really trust them. They think in an accident, things aren't going to go well. Not a lot of crumple zones. Again, the designed to make the car slow down faster, right? Crumple up cheap sheet metal and save you from the oftentimes deadly forces of that accident. But Smart did something where they made the actual frame, the safety cell, visible in the design. When we look at the design, here, this is a 2002, you can see that design here, the shape of the design is really kind of saying this is your safe point, right? It's giving the driver, and the buyer a sense of security in that you can see the cell, you can see the technology working. It's really great, especially with EVs now, where they say the car is so much technology, so great, and then you can't really see it, right? I mean, you can kind of see it working, but you can't see it. And, for some reason, humans like to see things to believe them. That's just one of the many faults or advantages, if you see it that way, of humans. And so this radical, nice design of being able to physically see the thing that will prevent you from passing away in an accident was very reassuring to people. And it also gave it a cool style. I mean, this style was just so amazing. I mean, look at it. It's timeless. You got the blue, you got the little bug eyes, and the interior. It was not that great in ergonomics-wise, but I will say it was neat, and it was very forward-thinking. Now, just a quick note here. Why was it called the ForTwo? A lot of people ask this question frequently on the internet, and that's because it's simple ForTwo. Now, most people think it's four, as in the letter 4-2, in that it has four wheels and seats too, but no, just ForTwo, in that two people can sit in the car. It is for those two people. So, just in case you're wondering. So, who were the people behind this? The watchmaker Swatch and the car company Mercedes-Benz. I don't know about you, but if you thought of two car companies that would make the smart car, a watch company and Mercedes-Benz doesn't really make sense here. Now, if you are used to the modern day car industry, you probably think that Mercedes-Benz had this idea for a small compact car, like they did with the A-Class. If you don't know, the A-Class was a small little compact hatchback. A lot of people didn't like it. It rolled over. I'll make a video on that. It'll eventually be the car of the week. I have a huge list of car of the weeks that I need to get done. But Mercedes, you probably thought that they had this vision and then Swatch just designed it, as they are watchmakers. I mean, look at that orange rectangle. You can't get that for free, right? They probably just had Swatch design it. Well, no, actually, Swatch was designed by Swatch, the company, called the Swatchmobile. Now, oftentimes we see this with a lot of cars, where someone has an idea, and they know that they can't do it on their own. If the Swatchmobile was specifically made only by Swatch, the watchmaker, I highly doubt any of us would have ever seen a Smart ForTwo. It would be, none of us would have Wegos. None of us do have Wegos, but, not Whistling Diesel, Aging Wheels wouldn't have I keep forgetting the names of them. I'm just going to say Coda, because it's not that, but sure. Aging Wheels wouldn't have a Coda. So, yeah. So Swatch went with Mercedes-Benz, and they said, hey, old mate Mercury, we are willing to give you the design for this car, but you have to make it, but, it doesn't have to be directly under your name, right? It's not the Mercedes-Benz smart car. It's just the smart car, with Mercedes-Benz and Swatch both backing it. So that's what happened. It was, Swatch, the company, collectively thought, you want to know what? Cheap transportation, good. We should make a car like that. They reached out to Mercedes-Benz and they were like, well, sure. Well, the first time that the United States ever saw a Smart ForTwo was in 2008 when we got the second generation. Now, the interior was slightly different, not a huge difference, but definitely better for American audiences. It's cream-colored in often cases rather than the absurd radical orange and blue that they had going on back then. And, pretty simple gauge cluster, simple design. Now, the Wego didn't knock off this design, they knocked off the original. So, if you've seen the Wego and smart car videos from Aging Wheels, this probably doesn't look all that familiar to you. But when you look closer, it's a safe, small little town commuter with a decent interior. You've got a radio, this interior change really made it feel more like a normal car and less like some sort of weird little golf cart thing. Now, we're specifically talking about the Smart ForTwo. Smart also has a history and also did make other cars. Now, Smart was kind of created by the Swatchmobile and the Smart car, but they made the Smart Roadster, and they made a few other cars along the way. We'll get into their history now. But now it is time. We've talked about the history, we've talked about the design, we've talked about why it became so popular, why it became so famous, why it was great. It's time to get into generations, right? The generations of the smart car. Now, we're only going to be doing the ones that we had over here. The complete generations list, I'm just going to rattle off the first generation and then move on to the other ones. And at the end, there will be a spec comparison, so stay around for that to decide, for some reason, if you want one, which generation you should buy out of 2 and 3. So the first generation ran from 1998 to 2008. 2008 it was replaced and ran until 2015 in the United States. This is this car, this interior. You've probably seen it before. This car. This is the one that us Americans are familiar with. Yes, it did have some sort of weird cross cabriolet version. The Smart has had a lot of weird versions. There was also an electric version, which you can see lovely here in this lovely shade of green. I really do like that shade of green. It was a debate, but if this is a nice shade of green. I think it's a nice shade of green. Anyway, and then they moved on in 2015 to making the new Smart car, which, it was fine. It looks like this. I think it's a little bit ugly. The original Smart car was great in that it looked cute, right? It sloped forward a little bit. It was very cute. This was very muscular. Like those pit bulls? I love pit bulls. But those pit bulls with really thick muscles and they have really small heads? That's kind of what this looks like. It's got a lot of stuff down here and then it's this tiny little hood. It still had the tritium safety cell because that originally worked, but it didn't have the same design and it had a bigger hood this go round. But other than that, the same thing. It was pretty much the same car, except for the interior and a slight tweak in the specs and engine. But yeah, pretty neat. You had this little selector down here for your climate controls. Nice all in one space. You had this little touchscreen, which was decent. It could help you with whatever you wanted. Your shifter, little slide out pocket storage, your steering wheel, and your thing, right? Your gauge cluster, with a nice cloth dashboard so that, you can spill stuff on it and it can get all gunky. The last year that the United States officially saw a smart car was in 2019, but they officially started ramping down production in 2017. So now it is officially time for the comparison. So I know this is framed a little bit weirdly, but they only let you put 4, and I didn't think of the other 2 until the last minute. So we've got and this is 2014. and 2017, so just ignore this one. This is the last generation of the last year of the second generation, and then the last, not official year, but the year that they started ramping down production of the third generation, and then a first year of the first generation, right? So you can look down here, we can see that the 2014 original MSRP was, more expensive than the original. If we look at the ratings down here, ignore this because it's going to be the same as this one, we can see 4.7, 4.3, and 4.5, meaning that the 2014 was favored over the 2008, which was favored over the 2017. Funny how that works. If we also look at the miles per gallon, which you would expect to be high, small little light car, then you're probably going to realize that Tritium cell ain't that light, because it gets 34 over 38, 34 city, 38 highway, 33 city, 39 highway, 33 city, 41 highway. You can just see the difference, slight differences here. The original one got the best gas mileage, so yay for that, I guess. And then we can see the horsepower. The new, for lack of a better term, third generation had 89, while the other two had 70, and then they were all rear-wheel drive. And then the engine specs, if you actually care about that, which I highly doubt people will, is over here. So, intriguing. Very intriguing. This is just specs. You can look this up if you want to. So, now that we've got the comparison done, which one would I buy? I'd buy a 2008, Put a new stereo system in there, give it some new parts, freshen it up a bit. It's great. It'll get better gas mileage than the 2014, and I'll probably like it more considering the rating than the 2017. Even though 4.3 is still a good rating. I mean, you should see some of the Fiats. Those are low. Now, where is Smart today? Well, since they stopped selling the Smart ForTwo and all of their cars in 2019, they only sell in the UK. And they don't make the Smart ForTwo anymore. They make the Smart number 1 and the Smart number 3. It seems the people running Smart in England aren't that smart, because it goes 1, 2, 3, not 1, 3, 2. Weird. Now, the one is this small little, it makes sense for the UK. The original Smart car was this goofy little thing, so now they're doing this. Smart number 1, cute little off-roader thingy, not off-roader, cute little sporty thingy, probably competing with the Mini Cooper, poorly, I might add, with this interesting interior. I find it interesting how they have all this metal over here. I think it looks ugly, but it's personal opinion. And then the Smart number 3, which is ever so slightly bigger. Seriously. Ever so slightly bigger. Just slightly bigger. They come in nice colors and they look fancy, and they have the stupid fake metal. Might be real metal. Doesn't matter. So what killed the Smart car? Hybrids. Hybrids really killed the Smart car. Why would you get a small little golf cart equivalent when you can get a golf cart for cheaper, and you can get a hybrid that does everything the Smart ForTwo can do, but better? Specifically, the earlier Priuses really did kill it. Now, this is a comparison of the 2017 Smart ForTwo and the 2016 Toyota Prius and the 2024 Toyota Corolla Hybrid Cross. So the Smart ForTwo could only seat 2 people. It was rear-wheel drive, it wasn't all that powerful, and it was decently expensive for a car in its size. The Prius could seat 4 people. It's decently comfortable and it's decently nice. The Corolla Cross can seat 5 people. The Corolla Cross can seat 5 people. It can go off-road, and it's a very capable vehicle. And we can see that the price difference is just $10,000. And $10,000 price difference may not seem like a lot, but look at the 2 cars. A $10,000 price difference is kind of insane, especially when we're looking at the 2016 Prius, which is even newer and bigger than the Prius that I showed before. We can see that the Prius is by far the highest rated out of all of them. People just liked it more. People like the hybrid, and we can see the MPG here, 33, 39 really isn't that good compared to the 50, 56, and 45, 38 that the Prius and Corolla Cross Hybrid get respectively. Also, that piddly little 89 horsepower compared to the 121 of the Prius and the 196 of the Cross Hybrid. The Cross Hybrid's even all-wheel drive, and it still gets decent gas mileage. So, that's really what killed the Smart ForTwo. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this video. Leave your comments, concerns in the comments. Questions, concerns. I'm so tired. And thank you for coming along in this journey for me. I cannot wait. I love this new series.